The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Mark Maneri and my colleague and co-host Larry Walters, and we are coming to you on Thursday, May 25th, 2017 for the monthly National Fair Tax webinar. Thank you for joining us. And I noticed we've got, just really want to acknowledge a number of you who keep coming back to support us, and Barbara and Randy, of course, and Ron, of course. And there's a couple of others as well, and Josh. So it's good to see some familiar faces along with some brand new faces. So we love the support, and we also love some new friends that we can bring some fair tax education to and answer a lot of questions and, you know, stay in the conversation. And it's an interesting time right now. We core fair tax supporters are in our own conversations about how do we create more impact and have more influence. And I don't know that we've got an answer, but one thing that I know and that I just want to acknowledge and honor with my colleagues that are all on the line tonight that I've just aforementioned is we stay in the conversation, and the dream stays alive when you stay in the conversation. So yeah, thank you for coming back, and thank you for those who are new and getting educated, taking time out of your evenings to learn about something that could absolutely make an extraordinary difference to our country and positively impact every individual and business in our great nation. So, you know, obviously that's what we believe, and we believe we've got the merits to support that statement. And so that's what tonight is about. That's what the webinar is about every month, is we offer and what you will see here is about a 30-minute overview of the main merits of the fair tax, the main points, the infrastructure of the legislation, if you will. And then we answer your questions. Yeah, we have an open dialogue about it. And we're going to take a real special look tonight at the things you can do to get and stay involved and actually have a real impact and get more people in this really, really important conversation. So with that, if my colleague Larry hasn't done so, I will invite him to start the recording. And one quick item of housekeeping note for those of you who are new on the line. At the bottom of your control panel, there is a place where you can type out some questions, and that's a big part of what tonight is about. And all right, so with that, I've been presenting on the fair tax for, 9 years now. And I love starting out the presentation by saying we recognize and acknowledge the fair tax for three really critical reasons. It's simple, it's fair, and it's transparent. And so when you look at the items of both simple and fair, and transparent for that matter, you know, really all three can be demonstrated as the antithesis of this image that you see right here. And so now this is an old slide, and I got to make a mental note, Larry, to remind me to update this. You know, this is nearly 3.5 years ago, and we've got a tax code, that's over 75,000 pages by now. I think it's even greater than that. So look, it's no secret. This thing's broken. You know, it works how it works, and it's quite a Band-Aid on a very complex nation around revenue collection. But how the impact of its operation is just so what I would call really non-powerful. Like it isn't what it could be. It leaves so much on the table of what's possible for individuals, businesses, the government, and our nation as a whole, economically. So we are going to systematically move through the presentation tonight to demonstrate why the fair tax doesn't leave anything on the table. it captures all opportunity at all levels. And then we want to answer your questions around it. So yeah, our current tax code, besides being just so damn confusing, no two CPAs could ever figure out the same tax return. Like, that's been proven over and over again. There's 7 challenges we've got with it. So you've got, we talked about it, convoluted, and I love this. And this, well, I shouldn't say I love it. I think it speaks powerfully to it. It punishes growth and expansion, and it inspires the wrong behavior. So we'll get to that deeply. There's a lack of transparency. There's loopholes. It's incredibly inefficient, impedes privacy, winners and losers, and it's incredibly time-intensive and laborious. So we're going to knock all 7 of these out one by one. So here we go. So the Fair Tax Plan is legislation that is not new to Congress. It's been around for, geez, I want to say a decade. And Larry can likely speak to that at some point later, tell me exactly how many years, but it's been in Congress for a while, and Congress is aware of this, and yeah, it gains momentum. It ebbs and flows, and so we're going to really look at how are we going to put more influence on it so it can flow right now, and the timing is really important. So it's legislation that currently exists, and one of the most important things about it is it's simple. It's 131 pages double spaced, and you could read this thing top to bottom. So let's start there. It's simple, and I think that's a really great starting point. Let's start with something really simple, and sometimes simple is a really great way to facilitate something special, something that works in a very complex financial climate with this country that is, has a lot of moving parts to it and a lot of special interests to it. And the simplicity of it really acknowledges all corners, if you will, of the country and all demographics, and it just sort of cuts through the noise. So we'll look at it. So the fair tax supports growth. So let's talk about it. It's a consumption tax, not an income tax. You pay taxes on what you spend, not on what you earn. And it eliminates all federal taxes and repeals the 16th Amendment. So right now, you pay, the federal government collects personal income taxes, corporate income taxes, capital gains taxes, FICA taxes, which are Social Security and Medicare, estate tax, death tax, alternative minimum tax, and there's probably a host of others that I haven't mentioned. And the fair tax says, in its simple brilliance, hey, let's wipe it all out and fund the federal government in the same way. In other words, revenue neutrally. We will collect the same amount of money with one national consumption-based sales tax. That's it. And it's to the tune of 23%. So again, you've got simplicity baked into this. Yeah, really smart idea. So it's fully transparent and there's no loopholes. And we love this. So here's what I said. It's just a consumption tax, really simple, 23%, and it's got all kinds of benefits on business and trade. So for starters, as much as $120 trillion, that's a lot of money right there. Pay attention to that. It's estimated that $120 trillion is parked in offshore banking centers globally, not just American wealth and assets and cash, but globally. And when the fair tax gets implemented, see, income tax, both personally and corporate, and capital gains tax goes away. And there's an estimation that approximately $1 trillion of this offshore wealth will organically flow back into our country. And there was a really brilliant study, a survey done of business owners around this, and the overwhelming majority of business owners who were a part of the survey said that they would bring this money back into the United States, And what would they do with it? They would do what they know best. They would grow and expand their business. Yeah, it just makes sense, right? Like, look, if you've got a successful business and you're under our current system, our current income tax system, at some point there is a point of diminishing returns where working harder to make more, to just have the government take more, like it just doesn't make sense. The math doesn't pencil out. So that's what we meant earlier when we say it inspires the wrong behavior, right? So at any rate, you got business owners who are going to expand their businesses, do what they do best, and boy, with this business expansion, guess what's going to happen? Like, you know, jobs and opportunity and a real boon to our economy. And like, how could that not happen? You know, we're not talking $1 trillion that has been, you know, manufactured and synthetically printed by the Treasury and, you know, distributed out, right? You know, with a real inflation risk. No, we're talking about business owners who bring it back and they invest and spend their money. $1 trillion organically in a year. Yeah, that's going to do a lot. And it's just going to make a huge difference because there's going to be more jobs. People are going to have more disposable income than ever before. They're going to go spend, save, and invest. And the cycle is going to continue. So, yeah, huge opportunity here. So the second bullet point here is the U.S. becomes a corporate headquarter haven. And right now, you may be familiar with the term called inversion. Inversion is where U.S. initiated, U.S. founded corporations that are global move their international headquarters overseas to more tax-friendly nations. Ireland's a good one. That's been getting a lot of businesses relocated there. Yeah, they've got a lower tax rate. And it certainly was in the news over the several months during the election because Trump said, yeah, he was going to clamp down on that. So when we remove our corporate income tax structure, or corporate income taxes period, and they go to zero, you're going to have companies, certainly the ones that have relocated their corporate headquarters initially from America overseas, they're going to come back. And then you're going to have global entities come over because of the business climate here is going to be so attractive. And when that happens, you are going to have businesses that are going to grow. They're going to build infrastructure. They're going to build office buildings. They're going to hire staff. There's going to be construction jobs, more hiring, more jobs, more income earned by more people, more disposable income, more spending, and the boon to the economy, that cycle continues. And then you got an underground economy that is estimated at $2 trillion and they pay their fair share. Yeah, so right now, 50% of Americans actually pay taxes. Now, that's not to say that the other 50% are considered in the underground. That's not what I mean. But what happens is you broaden the base and you've got all Americans paying their fair share. And the ones that are in lower income classes, we'll show you fairness around that later on in the presentation. They're taken care of. And you've got people who are avoiding their taxes illegally right now or fudging them, what have you, like, yeah, they can't avoid it, right? Because anytime they purchase a new good or service, they pay their fair share. And so we'll show you how that works a little bit in just a little bit as we move through the presentation. So, boy, we have got some significant opportunity when we pass the fair tax. And look, think about it. You pass the fair tax, and who wins? So the average American's income is going to go up by 29%. Well, how do we get to that? Well, there's no more gross pay, net pay, right? There's no more income tax withholdings because the businesses are going to be collecting taxes and sending them on to their state sales tax bureau. And corporate and personal income taxes, Social Security, Medicare, they all go away, right? So that goes away, the fair tax goes in, and the guy or gal who makes $5,000 gross no longer takes home a paycheck of $3,800. Now they take home a paycheck of $5,000, right? So you start doing the math on that, and it's approximately across all income sectors a 29% increase in income. Like, that's significant. So huge opportunity here. Okay, so we get really efficient when we move to the fair tax. So the states will collect from the businesses. 45 states currently have a state sales tax, and we're going to leverage that infrastructure. So we'll create state sales tax bureaus who will collect from the businesses, and they collect from 18 to 20 million businesses instead of 120 million plus households. Right there, we get 80% more efficient. It's really smart. Only one form to fill out. What are your gross receipts? What was your gross revenue? Multiply that times 23%. That's what you owe this month or this quarter in fair tax. And the businesses send it off with their form. Simple, right? So really easy to implement. And you talk about inefficient. Let's look at it. The IRS costs $13 billion a year. They only collect 3/4 of what they should be. And the fair tax would eliminate the IRS over a 3-year period once it's passed. Yeah. All right. So we protect our privacy. You pay your taxes when you make purchases. You don't fill out detailed income tax forms. We like to say April 15th just becomes another lovely spring day. And it's fair. And so we are going to look at this thing called the prebate, and I alluded to fairness for lower income class Americans earlier in the presentation. And now you're going to get a glimpse at it. So the prebate assures no one pays taxes, federal taxes, up to the poverty level limit of spending. So here's what this looks like. The Department of Health and Human Services in the federal government have come up with poverty consumption or poverty spending thresholds. So if you look on the right side of the screen in the second column under annual consumption allowance, what they're suggesting is that if you're a couple, 2 people, and you spend just over $24,000, that's the poverty level threshold of spending for a 2-person household. And you can see how it increases as you go up and over 7 people. Yeah, so basically what we're saying is that that number, you know, that's going to be the cost of your basic life necessities over the course of a year. Now, if you multiply that poverty level annual consumption allowance times 23%, you get the annual prebate amount, $5,548. And that is the amount of fair tax, federal consumption tax, that a couple who spends $24,000 would be paying in federal taxes. And so you take that $5,548 and you divide it by 12 months of the year, and every month that couple is going to get $462 direct deposited into their bank account on the first of the month, reimbursing them in advance for the fair tax they paid or that they will pay over the course of that month. So it's like, wow, okay, we've unburdened the poor. And it's really important to know this, because when if you're in a conversation with anyone who knows about the fair tax or thinks they know about it, and they're saying, oh, well, all that does is raise taxes by 23%, and, you know, boy, is that going to really hurt, you know, the lower income class people? And it's like, no, that's not true at all. So now you've got something to work with. Plus, people can go purchase used goods. The fair tax is only levied at the retail level, so not on business-to-business transactions. It's only levied at the retail level for new goods and services. And, you know, people could purchase a home that's been lived in before, a used car, you know, thrift store shopping for clothes and secondhand furniture, and all that stuff goes untaxed. So really, I think, brilliant component to this legislation. And by the way, everybody gets the prebate who qualifies. It doesn't matter if you make $1 million a year or 10 grand a year. It doesn't matter. If you're a qualifying American with a valid Social Security number, your household receives the prebate. Period. End of story. That's fairness. All right, great. So what's going to happen to prices? They're going to go up by 23%, right? Wrong. So right now, business income taxes are passed off to the consumer. So here's a great way to look at that. You go to the store, you go to the mall, and you go into a store, you buy a pair of designer jeans. The jeans right now, under our current income tax system, cost $100. Well, the retailer, the business that produces those jeans, they've priced the jeans at $100 according to a whole bunch of financial models, and one of the models would include what all their costs are. And part of what they include in their costs are their taxes, their business taxes, and their costs to comply to the federal tax code, right? Hiring accountants and financial experts, et cetera, et cetera. And that is a cost that goes into the price of a good that we as consumers end up paying. So really what we're doing right now, we're paying an income tax and a consumption tax. You know, we call that hidden consumption tax the embedded tax. And it's approximately 22% of all retail goods across all industry sectors. And so what happens when you pass the fair tax is the embedded tax of 22% goes out and the fair tax of 23% goes in. And while you don't have a wash, what you've got is approximately a 10 to 15% increase in prices that you'll see in the first year. And then companies that intend to really grow by capturing market share will lower their prices. Their competitors will follow suit to compete. And before long, after a few years, you've got the fair tax and the price of most goods and services at the same level they were pre-fair tax. So really important to see this. Yeah, prices aren't just going to be jacked up by 23%. No, somewhere around 10, 12, maybe 15% depending on the industry, and then they're going to come down pretty sharply over the next few years once it's implemented. So we've gone through this presentation and we've knocked out a bunch of stuff. We've got simple, fair, transparent. We've got efficient. We've got an absolute boon to our economy. A positive financial impact to all citizens and businesses, and the government makes more money. The government makes more money when the economy does well. So it's a win-win-win, and you go, well, why in the world don't we have this thing? And it's called selfishness. Really. Special interests. Yeah, take lobbyists. 50% of lobbyists are corporate tax lobbyists. And they make a lot of money. And there was a study done that for every dollar paid in compensation to a tax lobby firm, it returns 6. So in other words, a wealthy corporation pays a lobbyist, let's say $500,000 a year, and then they go and they influence Congress to manipulate the tax code that benefits the corporation the lobbyist represents, and over time they find that there's some level of savings in the corporate tax code to the tune of $3 million for that $500,000 spent. It's a good investment. So the tax lobbyist, when the fair tax gets passed, loses their job, at least as a tax lobbyist. They could stay as a lobbyist, but it's got to be something else because there's nothing to lobby for anymore, tax-wise. Corporate income taxes and capital gains and all that goes away, right? So they're threatened. Politicians don't like it guess why? They like operating in Shroud. They like having a 75,000 page income tax code, and they pull a lever here, manipulate something over there, push a button here, and you know, it's just a really convenient way to maneuver around money so that they can get some things that they want done in their district paid for. Yeah, that's truth. Yeah, plus the lobbyists are saying to the politicians, don't you go voting for that thing. You know, you won't get my campaign reelection money. So we've got some things backwards here, guys, where, you know, these people are supposed to represent us, but they're really representing themselves. And they care more about reelection than they do about actually being bold and standing up for their country. So we got to evolve here, guys, and the risk is who's going to do it before us. You know, another country that creates a consumption-based national tax, sales tax, boy, imagine the missed opportunity on that when all these wealthy corporations flock to that country. That's scary to think about. All right, well, let's do this. Let's take a pause. I know we've got some questions, and we are going to answer our questions. I'll ask my colleague Larry to unmute himself. And let's go through it. Ready to go, Larry?
Absolutely.
All right, Josh, good to have you back. Thanks for your question. What would be the best way to get progressives, conservatives, libertarians who don't support the fair tax on board? Yeah, what do you think about that, Larry?
You know, it's something I've been thinking about a lot more of recently, just because we haven't made the progress that I thought we should have made for the effort we put in. What's the best way? I'm thinking we've got to do something a little bit more than what we have been doing. And the only thought that came up thus far, and I'm sure one of the folks out here will maybe be able to expound on this idea, or it'll cause them to think of something else that we can do. But I think it might be worthwhile trying to influence some in the news media to become a little bit bolder in asking Congress, why are they not considering the fair tax? What is it so much that they love about an income tax that has them supporting it rather than even considering the fair tax or consumption tax? And questions like that. Otherwise, it's a matter of as many conversations as you can have with other people that you are associated with, whether it be locally or out of town, friends, neighbors, relatives, family, and trying to get them to understand the benefits. And if they start to push back saying, oh no, sales tax, that's 23% more, I could never handle that, help them understand that it is really not 23% more, because the first thing that happens when the income tax goes away is that the 20 to 25% embedded taxes that we all pay today goes away. Then the fair tax gets added to a new lower cost for products and services. Also, those products have to be new products to be taxed. Used products are not taxed. I think Mark didn't mention that. But it's a matter of you yourself, us ourselves, being knowledgeable enough to be able to carry on a conversation of an educational an educational manner, not a lecturing manner, and getting them to understand the real differences. And any ideas that you guys might have, please send them in. We'll be glad to talk about them ourselves as well as pass them on to the leadership of Americans for Fair Taxation. Mark?
Thanks, Larry. Yeah, Frank, we appreciate your comment and your question, which is something that Josh just said, and I'm going to say it out loud because I appreciate the vigor in it. Mark, the show is as good as always. Thank you. But what I'm looking for is a new approach. We have given all this information out in the past. How do we wake the dumbasses up? Time is too short to be nice anymore. We need is a relatively militant approach, I think, but I have no idea how to do that. Yeah, thank you, Frank. And, Larry spoke to it. And hey, look, let's be straight here. if we had the answer, you could count on the people on this line being in action with it. So we don't have the answer. What we know to do is to stay in the conversation for the purpose of keeping it alive and continue to influence where we can, but we don't have the answer. So you're right, Frank. We are looking for some fresh perspective, and we're all ears, like really.
Yeah, if you have talk radio in your area, local talk radio, call them up and bring up the fair tax. You've probably got a local newspaper. Write a letter to the editor and bring up the fair tax and ask the questions. Why aren't you discussing the consumption tax, the national sales tax, the fair tax, when Congress is talking about tax reform? They're not reforming anything. They're just moving the chairs on the decks of the Titanic. Mark?
Yeah. Yeah, Randy chimed in. Thank you, Randy. He said, we can help the states of Georgia and Alabama pass the state fair tax bills to replace their state income taxes and grow their economies. And then we may have a model that the government can really look at, beyond Florida and Texas. All right. Thank you, Randy. Oh, and he also said both have been fully drafted and researched bills. Yeah, that's great. All right. Larry, are you familiar with Bitcoin as a currency?
I am aware of it. I am not really familiar with it.
So Josh asked, how would the fair tax affect someone who uses Bitcoin? That's a good one, actually. I don't know that we've ever had that in 9 years. Not that it was even around 9 years ago, but I don't know the answer to that.
I don't see why it would affect it at all. It's not changing the value of our dollar, so it should not change the value of a Bitcoin. The only thing the fair tax is doing is getting rid of a very inefficient, ineffective tax collection scheme, revenue collection scheme, and replacing it with a national consumption tax, which is much more efficient, much less costly, and it treats everybody identically. There are no favoritisms. That's all we're doing. It's simple as that. Bitcoin is another form of money exchange, and frankly, I would not trust that as far as anybody could throw it. Because if you've only got paper dollars, what good are they when you don't even have control of them? I mean, Bitcoin to me is a ghost. That's the real cloud. I don't believe in the cloud for storage, because all the cloud is a computer in somebody else's location, some warehouse, maybe even in India or in Pakistan, that's collecting your data and supposedly saving it for you in a secure environment. So I won't even put anything on a cloud. That's getting off the subject a little bit, but I think it's a parallel to the Bitcoin fiasco. Mark?
Yeah, Randy wrote in, there's no tax on increase in value on Bitcoin. Would still have to pay government in dollars when consume new goods and services. Yeah, great. So Verlin, forgive me if I'm not pronouncing your first name properly, asks, what happens to all the deferred taxes on corporate balance sheets under the fair tax, Larry?
As far as I know, they go away. I think that may be something that when the fair tax is implemented, or not implemented, but when the fair tax is discussed in Congress, that would get changed, allowing some of that deferred tax to be claimed as a credit. But I don't think it'll ever be everything. Mark?
Yeah. So, yeah, a bunch of more questions of people saying, so like, how do we do this? What's the best way? Like, well, let's speak to it a little bit right here in our special topic, and then we'll go back to any more questions that we might have. So, well, yeah, I'm going to go through this first. All right, so the first thing is you can email President Trump, and there's the email address. Click on Reflections for the President, send him a note.
Your screen didn't change, Mark. Mark, your screen didn't change.
Oh, no, it didn't? Thank you, Larry. I appreciate you for being on the ball. There we go. Does that show up now?
That did it?
Yeah. So email the president and then go to this great website, Popbox, which pulls together all of the current bills on the floor or proposed bills, whether they're on the floor or not, in Congress, and it allows citizens to go there and say they're for it or against it and make comments on it. So you can go to popbox.com, create a free account, search for HR 25 and S18, and then just click some more support and leave a comment. And they look at that. So it's a really great resource. And then write, email, phone, and visit your congressperson and make it personalized. Mass marketing doesn't work. And then be consistent and don't go away. And look, I want to challenge you. If you've been on this line, you've likely heard this before. If you've been to a webinar before. And I ask you, have you done these things? Popbox is easy. It's great. Sending a note to Trump, it's easy. It's once. Are you consistent? Like, how committed are you that way? Right? You could write, email, phone, or visit your congressperson. You could do that every single dang week. And if enough people did that, well, guess what? That's exactly what we would need to do to move the needle here. And the easy thing to do is to say, well, yeah, I'm just one guy. Yeah, great. A lot good that's going to do us. So if we're all collectively doing it and just take some dang responsibility for it, like, man, it can have a real impact. And like, let me give you a number here. And if you've been on before, you've heard this. 3,000. It's a magic number. It's the number of people in a district who support legislation or an issue in a certain way that causes their elected official to turn their head and pay attention. Because 3,000 in general, on average, is a number that can really affect the outcome of an election. So that's like, really doable. So we just got to take responsibility and stay in the conversation and bring it up, bring people here. So the last thing you could do to have an impact is make a contribution, and we want you to join the 1040 Club if this aligns for you. So you just go to the website, go to the end, click donate, and you could just join the 1040 Club. It's real simple. Pop in your credit card, $10.40 a month to a nonprofit. That's it. That's it. And we need the money so that we can, really lobby harder and do more. So if what you hear tonight, whether it's the first time or the 100th time, aligns for you and you're not a 1040 member, I have a sense that if you spared a couple of trips to Starbucks over the course of a month, you could handle the 1040 and it would make a difference. All right. So yeah, let's tackle some questions. All right, question came in. What happens with all the pre-tax benefits that individuals have claimed in the past, such as a health savings account? Larry? Oh, Larry, you're on mute.
Thanks, Mark. I am sorry. It's not going to change your health savings account at all. We're not doing anything to change what is done with the money that you've already put away. For example, if you're contributing to an IRA as a tax deferred deduction, when you take distributions on the IRA under the income tax, you're going to pay the income tax on it. Under the fair tax, that goes away, so that when you take those distributions, they will not be taxed. That's a windfall for you. The savings account, health savings account, is a tax deferred deduction also. If you spend it during the period of time that, for the year, I guess it is, that's allowed, you're not going to be taxed on it. However, if you don't spend it all, in many cases of health savings accounts, you don't get the money back that has not been used for that year. So there's a double-edged sword on that. But anyway, we're not, to answer your question briefly, we're not changing that at all. Mark?
Yep, great. Yeah, Josh chimed in with some comments about ways to get involved and have an impact. And he said you could also email Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell. And I like this one, go to town hall meetings, show up. So like, look, you've got an aircraft carrier here with like the entire Air Force's planes on it. It's a heavy ship. It's not something that easily changes direction and charts a new course. And, what it requires is if there's enough incoming messages to Central Command, the captain at the wheel or the captains in the brig start to pay attention. So like, look, there's no magic answer to this thing. It's just people who are represented by elected officials being more than apathetic and indifferent about it. Yes, staying engaged, staying in the conversation, and being in action. Key words, being in action. Yeah. So, Larry, what would you like to say? Because we've got a number of experienced folks on the line and they don't have any questions. We've answered all of them. Yeah, well, we've done a pretty good job tonight.
Okay, well, I think as far as contacting some of the people, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram are three other places where they are very communicative. And I like Facebook especially because you're not limited to the 40 characters or 140 characters like you are with Twitter. And you can write some things that maybe Paul Ryan won't even read, but others of his followers will. And as long as you can start inspiring conversation with some of Paul Ryan's supporters, you have a chance to turn their cheek and turn their thinking around. So I think that's a very good way to go. The town hall meetings, that's a good thing also, but what I have found with my new congressional representative here, who replaced the co-sponsor of the fair tax, she doesn't announce her town hall meetings except to maybe a couple days before she's going to hold them. And it seems to me that she will only send newsletters out to those of hers who she knows for sure are part of her base, her supporter base, because I have put several subscription requests in to be on the newsletter and I have not received one notice. And I tried sending an email and my email was blocked. So she's just playing put her head in the sand and let's forget about Larry and the fair tax. Mark?
Yeah, thank you. All right, well, let's see. Oh, this just came in. Why is Congressman Kevin Brady supporting the tax plan proposed by President Trump rather than proposing the fair tax? I don't know.
That's another one of those heartbreakers. I mean, that's no different than Ted Cruz when he decided to run for president. He was a fair tax co-sponsor also, but he turned his back on the fair tax to create his own tax plan. Kevin Brady was part of the team that created the A Better Way tax idea. And in fact, I was reviewing a little bit of it tonight before the webinar started. Let me point out a reason why I have no trust whatsoever for almost everybody in Congress. And I say almost everybody because there are a couple in there that have been loyal. This is from the Better Way, A Better Way to Do Tax Reform. And I'm just going to read a couple of sentences here. Sentence 1. It says, while the IRS code runs 2,600 pages, the entirety of federal tax law spans a whopping 70,000 pages. Okay, so he's under the number a little bit, but so what? That's almost triple the amount of bureaucratic red tape since we last reformed the tax code in 1986. And I'm saying, well, we know it's been changed since 1986, but you come down 3 paragraphs, just 3 paragraphs on the same sheet of paper, and they say, and this is Kevin Brady or one of his minions' words, the world has dramatically changed over the past 3 decades, but our tax code has gone unchanged. Now, do you call that the truth or a lie after what he just said 3 paragraphs earlier? The tax code has not been reformed. Of course it hasn't. We've had over 14,000 changes since 1986. That's reform in inches, and inch by inch, anything is a cinch. And they slip it by us all the time. And then he goes on to say, our tax plan offers 21st century built-in real economic growth opportunity. What a bunch of BS. They've taken the tax code from what used to be 2 tax brackets in 1986 to 7 brackets now, and then they were going to take it down to 3 brackets, and they say they're doing a great deal. They're not doing as well as they did in 1986, and that was, for all intents and purposes, although there was a temporary improvement in our economy and everything was looking good, it was temporary because it's an income tax. Income tax will always be temporary, ladies and gentlemen, and if we don't get that through our skulls and pass that message on to others, we'll have a hard time getting support. We have got to let them know that Congress they are just absolutely corruptible, and we cannot trust them to do what's best for us and for America. Mark?
Yep, thanks, Larry. Yeah, a lot of praise for what you just said, Larry. It's good stuff. A lot of passion there. Yeah, so last question that I see here is, how will the prebate be paid out to registered families? So I believe that is going to be administered through Social Security Administration via direct deposit. Is that how you see it, Larry?
That's true, Mark. The states will process the applications, and in order for a person to be qualified, and this is for every person within a family also, all they need to do is have a legal residence in this country, and they have to have an active, valid Social Security account, and then they can qualify to get the prebate. So the state will process the applications, and if approved, we'll pass it on to the Social Security Administration, who will then dispense the checks each month. Mark?
Yep, perfect. Well, we got a little airtime left if anybody wants it, and you know what to do here. We've given you some things to do, and we request you being in action. And I'm going to just put these things back up on the board here. Yeah, be in action, people. You know, look, there's no use throwing in the towel here, you know, because we've still got an opportunity. We've still got a piece of legislation that's been brilliantly written, that's got some support. And, you know, just because we haven't found our mark, so to speak, it doesn't mean we give up on it. And let's keep our voices being heard. And, boy, you know, big opportunity here. We could really make a difference for this country. Yeah, Larry, any closing remarks?
Yeah, we've got a couple more questions that popped in here. There's a couple things I'd like to address. One is the question of example of prices of goods under the fair tax, and he's giving a softball cost of $1. Let's look at it this way. Take $100. Let's use $100 and subtract 22%, which is the low side of the average of what is embedded in the cost of everything we buy today. That leaves you, what, $78, right? $22 from 100? Okay. Then add 23%, and that'll give you an estimate, a ballpark estimate of what the new price would be for that $100 item. Simple as that. You can do the same thing in reverse on determining how much more money you'll take home on your paycheck depending on what your tax bracket is. All right, Josh also mentioned, don't forget YouTube. Now, if you happen to be able to do a short video or something like that and post it on YouTube, feel free to do that, and then take a link to that YouTube address that you've made and post it on your Facebook and on Twitter and whatnot so that you can drive people there to watch and listen to what you have had to say. Verlin asked, how can we access some of the studies such as the latest SEBIL report? They are on fairtax.org, and if you go to fairtax.org and look up the research, I'm not sure exactly which of the tabs has it. Randy might pop in and give us the exact tag. You can find that information there. And all of the studies that were done by the research economists that created the fair tax are available on fairtax.org under the research tab. Okay, so that information is available to you guys. And if you have any specific questions, please send them to me, send them to Randy Fisher, send them to Ron Malero. It doesn't matter. There's plenty of people. Phil Hinson up in Georgia, if you know him. Kerry Bowers out in Nevada, if you like the way he answers his response. It doesn't matter, but there are plenty of people who can respond to your questions and help you through it. You're not in this by yourself. We're working as a team. We'd like to work as a team, and we would like to work a lot closer than we have been. And Mark spends a lot of time on the road and out of town, so he's not as available as some of the rest of us for these kinds of issues. But if you want to send Mark an email directly, go ahead and do that. And if he doesn't have the time to look it up, he'll forward it on to me and I'll get an answer to you anyway. So that's one thing. Also, if you look at, go to the Fair Tax Guys, look them up on YouTube. You can look them up on Facebook. And they're also doing some live Facebook presentations now too. They've got a bunch of information up there. So the Fair Tax Guys is another source. And then Randy says if you go to fairtax.org/research-library, you'll get the Sebula report. What else here? And they can listen to the Fair Tax Guys on the radio. There you go. What else? I guess that covers it, Mark. I don't see anything else popping up that's new here. And I think you've got everything else. So unless there's any other questions or any other comments, any other ideas, if you'd like a copy of this presentation, we'll send you a copy of the slides for that. And it will be posted on YouTube sometime within the next 3, 4, 5 days. And you can go to the Florida Fair Tax Educational Association website, which is fairtax.org or .com. As of last night, ORG was having some troubles, but COM was working. And you'll be able to go down there and look at all the past webinars that have been posted on the YouTube channels. So, Mark, I think that pretty much covers it.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, everybody, for joining us again tonight. Wish you a really safe, happy, fun, and joyful Memorial Day weekend. We honor our armed forces, certainly. And y'all come back in June, 4th Thursday of June, and you join us again. Be in action. All right, everybody. Have a great night.
Good night, everyone.